Hello, my spooky crafty friends, and welcome to a mystery Halloween project, part of a Tricksters with Treats Halloween fun hop. Be sure to check out the video description for links to all the hosts and the amazing projects. So tonight I thought I would try something different. Usually I start off with a thumbnail showing you what I'm going to make, but I thought tonight it would be fun to keep you guessing. As you can see, I am starting out with a traditional pumpkin pail. This was from Walmart, $1.98. You know, it's a classic crafter's supply item, right? And hopefully tonight I'm going to show you something a little bit different to do with it. Let's see if you can figure out what it's going to be. So I'm starting out by cutting the pail in half, following the seam on the side there. I started out with my craft knife because I really didn't want to have to use my heated tool because I can't stand the smell of melted plastic. Unfortunately, the bottom half was so thick I had to bust out my heat tool. This is a wood engraving tool and mine came with a knife edge. So I used that to finish cutting it in half. And then I was able to go back to my craft knife and very carefully cut out the mouth of the pumpkin. So let's see, is this giving you some clues? What do you think I might be doing with this? I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on this. Have you made a project that started out this way? I'd love to know what you made with your Halloween pail pumpkin that was cut in half. So again, I am just following along the mouth of the pail, being very careful not to stab myself with my knife. I can be a klutz sometimes, so I'm taking it nice and slow, making sure I don't hurt myself. With some of the smaller sections, it was easier to lift up that cut part, cut out that section, and then move on to the next section of the mouth. So when I'm done here, I'm going to have a nice little opening in the pumpkin pail that I can pull something out of. How's that for a clue? Does that help? This is a really fun project that I've been excited to finish, and I'm really happy with the way it turned out, and I think you guys are going to like it too. So I'm almost done there. I got one more little snaggletooth to cut out of my pumpkin, and then I'll be free to move on to the next step. The next part of this project will be painting, and for that I am using chalk paint because I want to give this a rustic finish, because to me, you know, this Halloween pail is just a classic, right, from our childhoods, and that shiny plastic is just too modern looking for me, so I'm going to vintage it up a bit with some chalk paint. Now, before I paint it, I am grabbing my crocodile and punching out 2 holes on each side. Is that another clue? What do you think I'm going to be doing with those 2 holes? You'll see in just a few more minutes. So there I go with the chalk paint. It's a really pretty, I'm calling it like a muted orange. I think it's a nice shade to create a vintage effect on the pumpkin. So I'm going to paint on one application, covering everything except for the eyes and the nose. And then when that's dry, I'm going to add a second layer of paint just to make sure that my finish is very even and covers up that bright orange plastic that's underneath. I'm going to pick it up, make sure I get all the sides covered, the tippy top there, and then of course the bottom of the pail. Get it all covered up in that pretty chalk paint. As I mentioned before, this is just my first application of paint. I'm going to let it dry and then come back and add a second layer of paint before I go into adding the details to this cute little pumpkin pail. After I add that second layer of paint, I'm going to add some of the detailing while that paint is still wet so that I can help blend the colors a little better. So what I'm doing after that is mixing 3 parts of the orange paint with 1 part of a brown matte paint. So this gives me a slightly darker shade of the orange, and I'm going to use that to paint in the lines on the pumpkin face. This is going to help create some dimension because, you know, the chalk paint is making it look very, very flat, and I want to maintain that pumpkin appearance. So I'm kind of highlighting those lines with this darker paint. And by adding it in while that second application of paint is still wet, I can blend the edges a little bit better. So again, I'm just following the lines that are already in the plastic pumpkin, which, you know, makes it really easy to do. It's almost like coloring by numbers, except we're just following the creases in the plastic. After the creases have been painted in, you really want to leave this to dry before you go on to painting the eyes and the nose. So this is going to be one of those do as I say, not as I do moments. I was really impatient and eager to get going, so I started filling in the black. I'm using a black matte paint in the eyes and the nose. However, because I was so impatient, there is still a lot of wet orange paint in the corners there. So I had to be very careful not to get that orange into the black paint. So that's why I'm saying you really want to wait and let that dry. It'll make it a lot easier and faster for you to fill in these areas. So we've got the face painted, we've got some highlights, we're filling in the eyes and the nose, and we've got this big gaping grin. Any ideas where I'm going with this yet? Be sure to leave your guesses in the chat box or in the comments. I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are. So again, filling that in and then leaving it aside to dry overnight. And when that is all dry, check out how cool this looks. How cute is that pumpkin? I love the way the chalk paint gives it a vintage finish. And for my last step, I have taken some green ribbon to look like the vines that come in a pumpkin patch with the pumpkins. I am poking that through both sides of the pumpkin head. So I've got one set there and one here, so I can tie it onto something. Are you ready? It's your last chance to make a guess before the big reveal. And here it comes. Ta-da! What do you think? Isn't that the happiest little toilet paper dispenser you've ever seen? I know my kids are absolutely going to get a kick out of this. It's going in the guest bathroom, so anyone who comes to visit will be forced to retrieve their toilet paper from the pumpkin's mouth. Here's a look at the sides. How fun is that? I hope you'll give this project a try because it's really quick and easy, and it's just such a fun way to decorate a part of the house that a lot of people don't decorate. Have fun crafting and creating.